What's going on, everyone? The Clippers play the Timberwolves in the first play-in game, and I do believe that they will beat them today and then play the Memphis Grizzlies as the seventh seed, and I wouldn't be shocked at all if they were able to beat the Grizzlies with a healthy Paul George. This team has overachieved in many ways. A lot of guys have really stepped up, played big. It's been a collective group effort, right? We've seen many guys double digit efforts on a regular basis. They're playing team defense, all of those things. Ty Lue is just really having this group buy in, believe, making the adjustments, making the changes, and it's just a really great, solid team. Add in a Paul George, I really think this team is a real playoff team. Now, that doesn't mean that I think that they'll win the championship or anything like that in regards to Paul George being healthy and in the play-in, but outside of the Phoenix Suns, I don't see any real world beaters, right? Phoenix, I think, is going to come out the West again, but outside of them, I think the Clippers have a chance against any team that they play. Now, that being said, the question that I want to pose to you all, and of course have a discussion with you all down in the comments below, is in regards to Kawhi Leonard on this Clipper team. Now, the Clippers have dealt with injuries all year, right? Paul George and Kawhi have been injured pretty much the whole year on and off. Kawhi's missed the whole season, and there are rumors that he will come back in the playoffs, but at this point, it's like, why? Let him take the year off, get regroup, get ready for next year. But, I mean, if you're in the Western Finals, maybe you do. Maybe if Kawhi's healthy, you plug him in and see what happens. Maybe you can get a spark and get in, beat the Suns, whatever the case may be, get into the finals and see what happens, right? But I think realistically, we will see a team without Kawhi. And depending on how this team performs, based on what we've seen during the regular season, the real question is this team better without Kawhi? And I know what you're thinking. Like, Kawhi is a top guy in the league when healthy. I mean, he can guard anybody on the court. He's a 25-point-a-game guy. And I'm not arguing that. He is phenomenal. He is a star in so many ways. But what we got with this Clipper team is depth, effort, and just, a team group coming together to overachieve in many ways. Now, you add in a Paul George. We saw Paul George be able to plug himself in and be effective. The difference between Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, though, Paul George isn't a vortex, right? We saw that with last game when he got 12 assists, right? Paul George is a willing passer when need be. He's willing to, make plays for others, but he's also a guy that, just like Kawhi, can go get you 25 a game and guard the best guy. The only difference between the two is that Paul George, there's many questions about him in the playoffs as opposed to Kawhi. We know Kawhi can lead you to a championship. Paul George, we have yet to see that. But what Paul George gives this team, Kawhi does not. And Kawhi has been a black hole when it comes to getting the ball. I mean, he has a career average of like 2.1 assists per game. So he's not a passer. He's never had a year in which he's averaged more than, I think, 3 assists a game. So he's not a guy that's like, oh, let me feed the hot man. Let me feed the open man. No, he's a guy that I get the ball, I'm going to get to my spot, mid-range, boom, bucket, which is great, which is fine. You need that in crunch time. You need that in key situations. But that doesn't necessarily mean that this team needs that. Because, again, group effort, everybody's involved, everybody's sharing the ball. The ball's not sticking to one sticky hand, it's going to several groups. Even Paul George, like I said, he plugs in, and he's the same thing. He's feeding the ball to various people. And so when you add in a Kawhi Leonard, what's likely to happen is now those guys aren't as engaged. They're not as involved. The ball gets to Kawhi. The game plan is now get the ball to Kawhi. Those kind of things, instead of playing within the offensive system that you've built. Getting the guy, Luke Kennard, he's hot, get him the ball. Let him jack up a couple shots. Boom, Morris, he's hot, get him the ball. Let him jack up a couple shots, right? But when Kawhi's on the court, that stops, right? Because he needs his shots. He needs his 25 shots a game. Paul George is going to need his shots, right? Paul George seems a little more willing to blend in, adjust, do what is necessary for the team. But Kawhi, we've never really seen him do that in this regard. Now, the reason that I bring this up also is like, what if they explored a trade for Kawhi Leonard next season? And what I mean is, what if they got like a Jimmy Butler, a Bradley Beal, even like a Donovan Mitchell? And I'm not saying by any means any of these players are better than Kawhi Leonard. I'm not saying that at all. I want to make that clear. But what these guys do, Kawhi does to the same degree. Maybe not so much Donovan and Bradley as far as defense, but that consistent 25 a game scorer, a guy that can blend in with the team, but they're also willing passers. Like even Jimmy Butler. We've seen Jimmy Butler sacrifice on several occasions. He does provide a lot of what Kawhi Leonard does. He is in many ways a Kawhi Leonard light. He is a Paul George 2.0. You know what I mean? And so he is a guy that, like, if you could get, say, Jimmy Butler and PJ Tucker and maybe another guy or two to come in, Duncan Robinson or something like that for Kawhi Leonard, maybe you can have that plug-in and have the success and actually be a better team. It doesn't mean that on paper you're not better. That doesn't mean that Kawhi isn't a better player than those guys, but they would fit the mold based on what we saw with the Clippers this year. Same thing with the Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal, he's been a playmaker. He's been a point guard when need be. So he can get you 25 a game, dish out, 5 or 6 assists. He can play within the team, within the offensive structure, things like that. Same thing with Donovan. We've seen him, 25-point a game guy. He's a guy that can dish out 5, 6 assists. And also these are guys that have been at least rumored to not be happy in their situation or having issues or whatever the case may be, and may become available, especially for a healthy Kawhi Leonard. I mean, would Miami take a Kawhi Leonard over a Jimmy Butler? I think so. I do. I think that that would be a trade. Bradley Beal. If Bradley Beal says, hey, I want to go, Washington, would they take on a Kawhi Leonard? Now, would Kawhi want to go to Washington? That's a different story, but you get what I'm saying. The point is getting a guy that provides what Kawhi Leonard provides, just willing to be more of the team guy as opposed to Kawhi. I mean, even injury, like tic-tac injuries, things like that. Kawhi hasn't been able to prove I can play 82 games. I am willing to, on a broken finger, come in and provide that spark, still play defense, still score. And I'm not saying all players have to play through injuries or whatever the case may be, but Kawhi is notorious for my leg's sore, I'm going to sit out. And it's it could be anything. It could just be a leg cramp, you'll be fine tomorrow. Nah, I'm going to take a week off. Things like that. That is an issue when you're talking the grand scope of the team. And we're seeing this repeatedly. The Clippers have all this promise, they get to this spot, Kawhi gets hurt. So that's another issue too, that if you got a Jimmy Butler, you likely address. Jimmy Butler is a guy that is old school. He's willing. He's a hard-nosed guy. He's going to be in the team. He's a team guy in many ways. Yeah, he's had a lot of locker room issues, stuff like that. But winning solves everything. Everything solves anything. He's a guy with drive, passion, things like that. I just think that it's a possibility that should at least be explored and is worth at least a conversation. Because Paul George, like I said, he is a guy that has proven that he can be the star on this team. That he can be the guy that will go and get you 25, 30 a game, but still get you a triple-double or still get you, 7 assists and play within the team, guard the best guy, do all the things that the Clippers need. And he could be the go-to guy down the stretch. We've also seen Reggie Jackson be that go-to guy and prove that he's the go-to guy, not only in the playoffs last year, but in the regular season this year, which is huge. And my issue is you add in a Kawhi, and the type of game that the Clippers are playing that has made them so successful now completely changes because Kawhi Leonard is the guy. He is the guy that becomes the focus. He becomes the offense. He becomes everything. And everyone else sort of sacrifices for that when they've been so effective. But if you could plug in a guy that provides the same thing that Kawhi provides, which is really all they need is just the defense and the clutchness and the consistency. Now, of course, those are all huge things, right? But there are other guys out there that can provide the same thing. Like I said, Jimmy Butler, he can go out and he can provide you that defense. He can provide you that clutchness. He can provide that teamness. Hey, let's get involved. Let's get everyone involved. And be healthy and be a lot of the things that Kawhi isn't. And again, I'm not saying that they're better than Kawhi. I'm just saying it might fit the team better. And basketball is a team game. We've seen teams throw together superstars constantly, and it just doesn't work out because it's not the benefit of the team. I mean, look at Brooklyn. Look at the Lakers. Look at teams like this. The James Harden experiment didn't last very long. So what if instead of trying to force this issue and saying, let's make it work with Kawhi and Paul George, explore other options and say we have a team that clearly works, Add in Paul George, it's working with him too. So let's, yes, maybe see what Kawhi and this team can do. Maybe Kawhi does buy it. Maybe he is willing to do whatever is necessary. But we haven't seen him do that in the past. So I definitely think it's worth them trying to give it a shot. But if it looks like it's just becoming the Kawhi show, I think you explore what kind of trades you get. Maybe get some more depth, maybe get a couple stars, whatever the case may be, and see what you can develop with this team. Because I still think that they are good enough in a West that isn't great. I think the West is tough, the West is good. But no team, again, is a world beater, is just this like team that you should be afraid of outside of the Phoenix Suns. And I know there's tons of hype around the Kawhi and Paul George. There was so much promise, all of these things. But there were questions in the beginning of would it work because they're a lot of the same players. And they've gotten to the Western Conference Finals. That's great. But that doesn't mean that they can do that again. That doesn't mean that it will continue to work. That doesn't mean that Kawhi can stay healthy. That doesn't mean that the team will buy in once it happens. So it's just something that I think is, again, worth the discussion. So as always, I want to hear from you. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. What do you think of this Clippers team? What do you think of this team with Paul George? What do you think if they were to explore a Kawhi Leonard trade? Like I said, go get another star that fits into your system more, that is more of a team guy than Kawhi. And I'm not saying Kawhi is a bad teammate or anything like that. It's just the way he plays, the style in which he plays, how effective he is by needing the ball, and how he is this sort of black hole when it comes to the basketball getting to him. Like, I just think that there are other options that may be better for the team. Not that they're better than Kawhi. So, again, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. I'd love to hear them. If you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me out a lot. Lets me know you enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. If you're not subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button, followed by the bell notification. Stay up to date with all things sports, join this wonderful community, and all of our discussions. I'll see you all in the next one.